Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
A 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura.
Hey. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep to the wall.
Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year from Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner! Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Episode 31. Welcome to the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lynn. I am joined by my co-host, Bill Pulsifer, former Major League pitcher and former Met. This is episode 31, brought to you by roots-recordings.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, like, and share. And, of course, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Bill, it's been a couple weeks. I've been on the IL. I'm on the mend, as they say, but I'm happy to be back. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Nice spring day here. Enjoying watching baseball on a nightly basis. Hasn't been the best so far, but enjoying that the baseball season's here.
Yeah, it's our first podcast during the actual official baseball season. We went all off season and, of course, spring training with podcasts every week. And we're not even a week into the season, call it that or so. We have a lot to cover. And before we do that, episode 31, we don't even have to go into jerseys and uniform numbers worn by no other than, if you want to go ahead with that name.
Mr. Mike Piazza.
Yeah.
Johnny Franco, who gave up number 31 for Mr. Mike Piazza.
Yes, he did. He, do you remember the number? I'm sure you do. That he took after he gave 31 away?
Michael Jordan's number.
Yep.
Kind
of. Technically, yeah. It was technically Jordan's number, 45.
Yeah.
I always wondered it's probably easy to find out if we ever could talk to Mike, what John had to give up. Or, I'm sorry, what Mike had to give up to get that 31. Because, Mike wanted it after all those years in the Dodgers.
Absolutely.
Now it's what? Yeah, now it's Rolexes.
I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny didn't just give the number up just in good faith. But I wouldn't be surprised if he got something, and if Mike gave him something anyway, even if he told him he would give it to him in good faith,
Yeah, things were different back then. And we're talking, that was 1998. And, these days it's a Rolex. It's, some type of crazy thousands of dollars, gift or whatever.
I gave up Tom Seaver's number when I was playing with the Red Sox for Oogie Urbina. And I thought, okay, I got a chance to maybe score a little merchandise here, and I didn't even get a thank you from him. So,
yeah, they were talking about that during the Mets Red series. That we'll get into, the first 10 or so games of the season. But Gary Cohen was mentioning how it was weird to see a Red pitcher, not Red Sox, wear number 41 for the Cincinnati Reds.
Absolutely.
Not that Tom Seaver was the pitcher he was on the Mets for the Reds, but it was still weird to see a guy wearing someone who wore that number for that team, 41.
Yeah, it was still Tom Seaver. I thought it was pretty special that I got a chance to share numbers with the franchise, even though it was as a Red Sox and not as a Met. But I thought it was still pretty cool that I share that with him.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So we have a lot to uncover. The Mets started off their season not too well. 0-5, not what you want in the first 5 games of the year. Obviously, it was the first time since 2005 that they did that, and if they didn't win their next game, it would have been 1963 that it was, or something like that. But they rattled off 4 of 5 after that debacle of a start. And, like I said before, there's so much to unpack in just, let's say, 10 games or so. Let's start with the lack of hitting with the Mets. Because right now, let's call this team a little under 500, if you will. They're not horrible. They're not good. They are what they are. It's early. But their pitching has been the catalyst. They have the best ERA in the league as a staff. And they're driving them to win games because the hitting has been atrocious. We could talk about Eric Chavez, Jeremy Barnes. They've been here for, 3 years now? But it's really the core players that are letting this team down. And Bill, we talked about this all off season. If the Mets were going to have a chance, the Mets core players the ones that have been here were the ones that we thought were going to have to do well. We were worried about the guys who actually started off well in Beatty and Alvarez. But let's go right into it. I'll throw some names out there. You tell me what your early assessment of them is. The core players, obviously, Jeff McNeil on the interstate, Pete Alonso on the interstate, Francisco Lindor not even on the interstate, and has, 2 hits from the left side. Harrison Bader couldn't hit a beach ball, really, if it was thrown to him. There are a lot of outs right now. Not that Bader's part of the core, but after, and you know this more than anyone following baseball your whole life, after you get to 45 at bats, it's harder to really creep up that average. We had the Brandon Nimmo game where he had the 4 for 4,
RBIs.
yeah, 5 RBIs, 2 home runs. He had not a lot of at bats to creep up all his stats. We're getting into that range where Lindor, McNeil, Pete, they're on the interstate, and we're approaching 45, 50 at bats for them. So it's early. Things will change. I always look to the back of the baseball cards for their track record. But your early assessment of the core guys.
Well, I see a lot of guys pressing, obviously coming out of spring training or going into spring training through the winter. The big question mark was supposed to be the pitching. And the fact that the pitching is doing well, I think is, and obviously you want the pitching to do well, but I think it's adding pressure to the guys that were supposed to be what was going to help keep this team competitive this year, which is the lineup. Obviously Lindor is struggling mightily left-handed. We talked during the winter what I would like to have seen from him. Not that it's important, what I think, but
it is.
more contact the other way, be more hitterish as opposed to overswinging. To me, it looks like I'm seeing overswinging, trying to pull the ball over the right field wall. I think Nimmo just hadn't got off to a rough start, hadn't got it going. He did get the day off the other day, which it seemed like it kind of turned him around a little bit. I think it's tough to say, because I know Lindor doesn't like to come out of the lineup, but maybe he needs one of those just to be at the ballpark days where he doesn't have to worry about at-bats and can just be at the ballpark and not the quote-unquote real day off where you don't even go to the yard and you take that day off. I think sometimes those mental breaks are good for players. It's tough this early in the year to say that somebody needs a day off already, but Lindor is struggling mightily left-handed. It's hard to watch. It's tough to see. I think Pete wears his emotions on his sleeve, or his heart, at least on his sleeve. I think that he feels the pressure of the team struggling, and he feels like he is the guy that has to beat the ball over the fence and has to lead the team, especially with Lindor struggling. And then you add on the added pressure of he knows that this is contract year, and every single at-bat and every single pitch probably feels like that's money coming in his pocket or money flying out of his pocket. That's just human nature.
I hope he doesn't look at it that way. That's added pressure.
Yeah, well, look, man, listen, baseball is hard enough as it is, and you start adding in other circumstances, whether it be, hey, the teammates are struggling, so now I've got to try to pick the teammates up, or hey, I'm trying to make that money. It does start to wear on you. I hope somebody gets to Pete and tells him, man, listen, Pete, no matter what, it doesn't matter what you do. If you hit 80 home runs or if you hit 40 home runs, you're going to make enough money in this next contract where you and your kids' kids are going to be all right. Let's just try to relax and play baseball. Easier said than done, but I think that would be some good advice for him.
Pete got off to an odd start. He looked good in spring training, but you could throw spring training out the window, as we all know. But he was hitting the ball to right field.
Yeah.
He had his average up early, and it's still early. And then he went into 0 for 18 funk on the road trip. He did have a nice game on Tuesday where he had a 3-run homer, had a double. Those stats matter. It brought the Mets back in the game. They were down 6-0. It cut the lead in half, and somehow they got the tying run on base, which ultimately actually Pete made the last out of the game.
Yeah,
but
it's a bummer. It was a strikeout too, though. If he hits the ball hard somewhere or puts the ball in play, and it doesn't happen, all right, so be it. It's baseball, but the strikeout, looking bad on the changeups, kind of makes you know that he's anxious. He's jumping out there. He's trying to get the ball.
Yeah, and you're right. A double in the gap would have scored Lindor, I'm sure. They were guarding the line, as we all saw on that Tuesday game. But, those stats matter for Pete, but you could see no player is going to show, joy after a loss. They lost 6-5 on that Tuesday. They were rained out on Wednesday. And Pete's still on the interstate. He still averages, I'm not sure fans know this, for his career, take a guess, Bill. He's got almost 200 career home runs. He's eclipsed Hojo. He's going to reach Piazza this year, and he's going to, if he re-signs with the Mets, he's going to break Darryl Strawberry. He averages X amount. Let me rephrase it: a home run in X amount of at bats in his career. It's astonishing, and he's still doing it this year. How many at bats?
I would think that very good is 13.
It's exactly that.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
Home run every 13 at bats is historically up there when it comes to home run hitters and historic home run hitters.
And the great thing about baseball, it's a stats-driven game where you could prorate everything and divide and multiply. So if you go, the Mets are 10 games in, times that by 16 or whatever it is to get to 160, and then do that with the amount of home runs that X player has. Pete's right there for 40 home runs that he's hit every single year, except I think 1 year, not even. So he's going to hit his home runs. He is.
But like we talked about all winter with him and with Lindor, that the batting average is going to be important, even though people tell you that it's not important. That's baloney, because if you keep the ball moving, and we'll talk about some things later on in the show when it comes to the pitching, traffic equals trouble. You know, and if you're getting multiple guys on base, especially with the only allowed to throw over a certain amount of times, you got to get the pitch off or you're giving away free pitches. I think that traffic in this day and age in the game is actually even more conducive to runs than it was even in years past, because of the way that it can wreak havoc now with the game, with the bases are much easier to steal. The pitchers aren't allowed to throw over a few times. An infielder can't run in and go talk to you for a minute without it counting as a mound visit. So I think that if baseball was smart, they'd start to think about ways of getting guys on base again, hitting behind runners. Like you said about Pete, I love that you said this. He started off the year, and even in spring training, he was hitting the ball hard to the right side of the field and over. So I think that the pattern of trying to overswing, we'll use Lindor as that too, thinking that he has to be a home run hitter. I think that traffic is going to become more important. More guys on base, more stolen bases, more hitting behind runners and doing stuff like that.
Yeah. Pete fell into a little bit of a lull, obviously, over that 18. He got stuck in his ways, but he can get back to hitting to right field. We've seen it already.
Yeah, he can do it. He can do it.
The one thing that scares me is that, and we're all big Pete fans, and we obviously are rooting for him to have a great year. I still expect it. It's way too early to get, worried about anybody. But over his last 162 games, if you factor in, obviously last year, he hit 217. You go with his average through the first 10 or so games this year, he's batting about 210 over his last 162 games. For Pete, if he was probably looking at $250 million a couple years ago. But if you're going to be a 210 hitter going into your contract time, in the offseason of 2020, going into 2025, you're not going to get that kind of money hitting 210 over your last 2 years. So Pete's got to find his way on base. And to your point, Bill, with all the new rules that are setting up stolen bases and getting on base, traffic is a huge part of it.
Huge.
that means Pete's got to get on base. Lindor's got to get on base. That's why and tell me what you think about Nimmo. Because I was never worried about Nimmo. And he had his breakout game, Nimmo's night, as we talked about. He was drawing his walks. So his on base percentage was always nearing 400, even when he was still hitting a $115. So he was seeing the ball well, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that if you look at the home runs that he hit that night, they were basically grooved pitches that he did not miss. You're not going to get a lot of grooved pitches. And if you do get them, you have to hit them. You're going to get pitched to a lot. Guys are going to try to make nasty pitches. And what I liked was his third hit that night was actually a hard hit ground ball through the infield, being
up the middle.
Being a hitter. So look, when you get that cookie, you can't miss it, because you might only get one in that bat. You might only get one or two a night full of at bats. So that's what I liked about not the fact that he broke out with hitting a couple home runs, is Nimmo will adjust himself to say, you know what, I'm just going to be a hitter right now. I'm not going to be a power hitter, where some of the other guys might are being a little more reluctant to say, you know what, let me just punch the ball and play a little bit right now, see what happens, let the next guy come up, don't be the last man out. And I think that's something that they could possibly learn a little bit from Nimmo's approach.
Yeah.
And I know they can do it. I just want to see him try it. I just want to see him try.
Yeah, I was never worried about Nimmo, and I'm still not. And I'll go on record right now, so early into the season. I still expect him to make his first All-Star appearance this year. I really do. I really do. I don't like that he's playing left field. Obviously, it shouldn't matter offensively for him. They have their Bader in center. I would love to see more of Tyrone Taylor, who could play all three outfield. He looks very athletic. He's clutch. He's good defensively. And right now, Bader, to me, is just an automatic out, and he hasn't done enough thus far in the outfield to take those run prevention plays that David Stearns was all about. He hasn't done anything.
He did get a nice knock there late on Tuesday, but I've seen a few times him making decisions in the outfield, and we'll use there was a sac fly a few games back with Marte and Bader running towards each other. Marte running to his right, Bader running to his left, both right-handed throwers, and Bader's calling off Marte. Well, Marte probably has the better arm as a right fielder, and two, Marte has a better chance of making a throw towards home plate, running to his right and throwing right-handed, as opposed to Bader running to his left. So I've seen a couple of things that he's done defensively that, like you said, isn't kind of adding up to him making saving runs for defensively, and then obviously he's struggled offensively.
Well, you brought up Marte, and before we get to Marte, I just want to talk real quick about McNeil, because we didn't go into McNeil in depth. I got to just think that his biceps that kept him out most of spring training, his soreness or whatever the injury was, is still hurting him.
Didn't they say he's got a UCL injury, right?
But the reason that he missed most of spring training was because of the biceps, actually.
I tell you what, I mean,
it's a mess.
If you have torn anything in your arm, and you're trying to swing, it is going to affect you, because you're not going to be able to let the bat go as freely as you'd like. Look, you don't go out there feeling 100% as a Major League Baseball player on a nightly basis, but you need to try to feel as close as you possibly can. So if he is dealing with, arm injuries, and you're a swinger of the bat, this is why they say, catchers are historically not great hitters, because their hands are all beat up all the time. So if your extremities that you use to swing that bat are a little beat up, it is there's a chance that you're going to struggle a little bit swinging. But I do see McNeil maybe not spraying the ball around maybe as much as he should as well, because I think when he's at his best, he's hitting the ball from the left field foul line to the right field foul line and everywhere in between.
He's got to get off the interstate. He's got that one home run, and he just does not look the same. We don't know if he's hurting. He obviously is not going to say anything. We didn't even know about that UCL thing until the end of the year. But, he's a big part of this lineup, just like everyone else we talked about.
One more thing on that, too, and I don't know if this is the case or not, but I know that there's people out there that think the golf and the baseball thing is not an issue. You can't tell me that hitting a ball that's down on the ground and not moving and with a completely different swing, doesn't affect you swinging at a ball that's flying in the air at you. And so I don't know how much golf he's playing, but I know if I was a manager or a front office guy, I wouldn't like my position players playing golf on a regular basis during the regular season. I think that's something for the off season, especially with the type of money that's being thrown around for you to get out there and get hits and be a productive offensive player. I think maybe golf needs to be put on the back burner a little bit. I think starting pitchers, sure. You're not swinging to try to get hits anymore. And I think that the mentality of golf relates very, very well to the mentality of pitching.
Yeah. All we could do is just hope that he's healthy and he'll come around. There's nothing really more to say.
I mean, look, I'm sure he's not trying, he's trying his ass off. That's for sure.
Oh, he always does. And just like Alonso, he wears his heart on his sleeve. So, we all know what that's about. Lastly, Starling Marte, we called him back in the offseason. We talked about him a million times. The glue to how this offense is going to shape out. He looks healthy, early on. The numbers are okay. They're solid. He hasn't done anything crazy, big hits. He's had one home run, but a respectable average.
Huge sacrifice bunt.
Yeah. He looks like he's in. He's focused. Yeah. He looks like he's there. He looks like he's healthy, and that's all we can ask for. And just, again, like McNeil, hope that he can stay healthy. But, he's not done anything crazy. Not that we expected anything, so early into the season. But I'm happy, and I'm sure you are, that Marte looks healthy. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, healthy. And then with him, I think with him realizing that he's healthy and knowing that he's healthy, I would only expect for him to improve. Look, he's obviously everybody's going to go through slumps and downtime, but I think that he's going to improve as the season goes on, as long as his health stays.
Yeah, I could not agree anymore. The two guys that have looked good, and more so the one that's looked the best, Brett Beatty.
Yeah,
Brett Beatty has looked very good. Now, again, very small sample size. I get it, but he's hung in there against left-handed hitters. He's looked very good at third base. And I'm not saying he's a Gold Glover. He's not. But he's looked much better for Brett Beatty compared to what we've seen in his rookie year. I'm going to give a little credit to Francisco Lindor, who spent weeks with him during the offseason, and Vientos, for that matter, showing him how he goes about it on the infield on the left side. Beatty's a pleasant surprise, and he's now not a platoon player. I mean, we've seen big hits from him. He's staying in. And he seems locked in against the left-handed pitchers. It's very nice to see Brett Beatty maybe taking that next step and leap to that first-round pick we saw years ago.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm guarantee you that lefty-on-lefty home run that he hit last week was probably a huge confidence boost for him. I went to opening day, and unfortunately, he had a bad game. He had the game where the ball got hit off of his glove. It actually hit his bare hand and went by him, and he looked lost at the plate. Since that day, he's played tremendous, and him running, the slow rolling ground ball towards third, man, he's made that play numerous times and make good strong throws across the diamond to Pete. His arm strength is better than I thought when I see some of the long throws he's thrown as well. So he has definitely been a pleasant surprise. It's nice to see a smile on his face and seeing him enjoying playing baseball, because that's when you're enjoying playing the game, it's easier for you to continue to play well. Obviously, you enjoy the game when you are playing well, but when you can have a smile on your face and not look fret or worried after a bad, like he got rung up on a check swing that was a terrible call a few nights ago, and he's able to shake it off because he's believing in himself right now and his confidence level is high.
Yeah. Brett Beatty, his arm has always been there. Not many people know this. University of Texas, first-round pick for the Mets. He was the quarterback for their football team. He has that arm.
He has a gun, and it's very accurate. I mean, he hits Pete in the chest over and over and over again with bullets.
I mean, if you're the quarterback for the University of Texas, I believe I'm right. I hope it's Texas. If I'm wrong, send your hate, tweets to me on X and Twitter. But his teammate, and it's very easy. If I could pull it up, I would. The Jets wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, I believe, was his teammate on, I want to say, University of Texas. And he said he's got the best arm I've ever seen.
Wow.
Because it was the quarterback. So, that's why we see that great arm. We've always seen it, but now I guess that Beatty's making the plays that he's supposed
making
to
the
at
plays.
third.
Yes.
And I also think that the Lindor's help, I'm not giving all the credit to Lindor,
Absolutely.
but a little, is that you could see, and you know this as a former major league pitcher, how infielders cut balls off, third baseman going to third. So the throw is so much easier than, a backhanded for a shortstop. Beatty's now doing that, the little things, and now his arm is showing.
I tell you, he's come a long way since the old pop-up last year that ended up bouncing and hitting him in the face. The poor guy. That was one of the most. That was
the wind.
Embarrassing.
It was embarrassing, but the wind obviously had a lot to do.
That ball. The only time I've ever seen a ball move like that before, where it started out in foul territory, curved up and around, was actually Butch Husky did it at Shea Stadium years ago, and it was the strangest thing I'd ever seen because you'd never seen it before. So that was when I think about Beatty's defense, that always seems to pop up in my head, that play. And he's playing great. He's really playing great.
I'm happy to see it because we always root for the homegrown kind of guys. Beatty drafted first round. That's why we all love Pete, and he embraces being here. And Nimmo the same thing. McNeil the same thing. So the homegrown players forever are always near and dear to our heart. Maybe a little more than other players who are brought 100%. From other franchises.
100%. Those when you're a baby and you become a Met and then you make it up there, that's always a special thing.
Yeah, the pitching has been unbelievable, Bill. And you're a former pitcher. You give lessons still. They have the best ERA, and you couldn't make it up if you tried. Right. Again, short sample size, and it's really because they're bullpen. And I said, and I'm not tooting my own horn because it's short sample size, we could come on next week and the Mets could have 5 games in a row where their bullpen implodes. But we said, and you and I were in agreement, that the addition of Edwin Diaz being back as closer connects this entire bullpen to above average is what I called it. Well, their starters are not giving them length, and they've had the godsend, again, early, of Reed Garrett, who has been the long man for them, bridging it to a Brooks Raley, Adam Ottavino, even Jake Diekman, who hasn't looked that great, but Drew Smith has looked good. And they've gotten some good performances in other places, too.
Lopez
but Edwin
had a few good outings.
Jorge Lopez, thank you very much. But Edwin Diaz looks like Edwin Diaz, and he makes all the difference in the world. What have you seen from Edwin Diaz, early on?
Well, I know we were texting his first outing. And his first inning, I was a little
worried.
Because I saw 95s up there.
Right.
I expected, and maybe he's just smart. Maybe he's smarter than me. I expected just flames from the beginning from him.
From
and
adrenaline.
And he came out there at 95, 96, and then by the end of the inning, he was ripping a 99 in there. And from that first outing on, he's been fantastic. He throws a pitch that the more and more that I see him do it, I think he's actually doing it on purpose. And that's that backup slider, the one that he throws inside to righties, which for years and years and years, they've always said the best pitch in baseball is the backup slider. The only thing is you don't know how to throw it. I think that he might actually, and this is, once again, might be smarter than me and smarter than most, is I think he's actually doing that on purpose because I saw him do it the other night, and he threw one of those backup ones inside to the righty, and the next pitch was a slider again, and I saw Alvarez put his glove down and away like he was telling him, okay, now throw this one over this way. So it made me wonder if this guy's really on a whole nother level when it comes to that pitch. And I think he's made Ottavino better. I know Ottavino had one bad outing, but his last 2 outings are the sharpest I've seen Ottavino in years. Obviously, we talked about this in the offseason, the pressure that Ottavino had to feel last year out of position, because that's never been his position. He's been an 8th inning guy, not a 9th inning guy. So he's back into a position where he knows this is what I've always been done. That's what I've been pigeonholed in. I'm an 8th inning guy. And, the game has turned into that over the years. You're the 7th inning, you're the 8th, you're the 9th. So when you get to play your position, and we didn't talk about Alvarez, but that's one of the, we'll have to get back to him real quick.
Yeah.
But knowing your position and knowing where you're going to be in the lineup or whatever is a big thing. And I think that helps Ottavino. I think that helps Raley. I think that helps every single one of the guys.
Raley's been amazing. He's been a very good pickup. He's 2 years, with the Mets now. He's 9 out of 10 times you can count on Raley. And just to feed off of what you said about Diaz, he looks like 2022 Diaz, knock on wood, where he struck out 17.9% of the batters, the per 9 innings, which is insane. And it came out to half the batters that he faced. He's doing it again, and it's the same again, a small sample size, but you just feel. And I talked about this too, and you were in agreement. Having and just knowing that Diaz is available, and you have him for that 9th inning for a save, or it's tied and you bring him in at home in the top of the 10th or top of the 9th. It changes the whole mindset of everybody, the opposing team, the Mets, everybody. The fans. Like, having him back is not just him getting outs. The energy that he brings, the swag, it's a game changer, and you have to remember that it's back, and that's a good thing.
You're chopping the game down to a 24 out game instead of a 27 out game, because you got that bullet down there that's going to be better than everybody else 9.5 times out of 10.
And to put a bow on Diaz, I saw one of your tweets the other day. The hardest 3 outs to get in a Major League Baseball game are the last 3.
Those are the biggest pressure outs. Most games are played within 3 runs, and if you do get traffic, you're only 1 swing away from game tied. So yes, that's why those closers are special guys. It's a special breed, and not everybody can do it.
And if you want to say Josh Hader is the second best reliever in baseball right now, he went 4 straight games of giving up an earned run. Can you imagine Edwin Diaz doing that? Now? No.
Yeah, maybe a few years ago, but not now.
Well, we know.
And I know we're going to wrap him up, but what I find impressive about him is I believe he's pitching more than he's ever pitched before. I think
he's a pitcher, not a thrower.
Yeah, he threw more in the past. I think he's actually really pitching his tits off. I really believe he is.
Yeah, he's getting smarter as he's getting older.
Yeah,
I read that he's given up sugar, which ironically is his nickname, and he went to salad, so he's taking care of his body more. I respect that because he's already gotten paid. He got that record deal of $105 million as a closer, and he's
he likes
taking care of his body.
Yeah, he likes being great, man.
Yeah. The last pitcher I just want to talk about, and then we'll get into Alvarez before we move on, because I know you want to get on talk about him.
I thought about it brief.
But I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up small sample size again. Sean Manaea. I love the signing when it happened. He's looked very good as a left-handed, not an ace, not even. Let's call him a 2 right now. He looks sharp. He looks like drive line where he worked out in the offseason, added maybe 2 miles an hour on his fastball. He looks like a pitcher who's locked in. It's an opt-out year, technically a 2-year deal, but he can opt out with the player's option, and he will if he has a good year. I hated the contract. I love the signing, but he looks very good so far.
We talked about this too.
And you're a left-handed pitcher, so you can relate.
And we talked about this through text, you and I, about his first outing where he was phenomenal, but I felt like he was over the plate quite a bit. But the thing is when you're throwing with confidence and you're throwing aggressively, the baseball has a weird way of knowing, and guys will miss pitches, And if you're throwing and you're feeling a little anxious or you're not feeling confident in yourself, you'll throw a pitch right down the middle and you'll damn sure that ball's blasted for a double or a home run. Or you'll throw a great pitch and they'll somehow flip it over the infield or hit it off the third base on a ground ball for a double. So what I like about him is his aggressiveness and his belief in himself right now. He's going out there and he believes no matter what pitch he's throwing that he feels like his pitch is better than the guy standing in the box. And that's a good feeling to have. And he's not throwing 97, 98 miles an hour. He's throwing 94, 95, topping at 96. And he's throwing high fastballs out of the zone and getting people to swing at them. So that means that the perceived velocity that these guys are seeing are much faster than even the number that it's reading on the radar gun. So he's been a pleasant surprise. Hopefully he keeps it going. Obviously, we got to get these guys through 6 innings and into the 7th inning very soon.
It's not sustainable to have, and we've seen it early on, where these guys are, just like you said, going 5, 6 innings, not even 6 innings, and then your bullpen's taxed, where you're using Ottavino, Diaz, Raley 3 out of 4 games, and then they're not available for the next 2. So you got to rely on what they call the B squad of the Drew Smith, the Jorge Lopez, and that's why Reed Garrett, like we talked about, as Bedagan said, giving up to this point 8 shutout innings and 8 Ks or something, just giving innings and quality. And that ties into one thing before I want to talk about, and we'll get to Alvey, I didn't forget, is the quick hook by David Stearns in terms of the bullpen. If you remember, and you do, because it wasn't long ago, there was a fight for the last two bullpen spots. It was three guys for two spots: Sean Reed-Foley, Johan Ramirez, and Michael Tonkin. Well, they've already DFA'd two of the three, and Sean Reed-Foley is on the IL. Tonkin, DFA'd, traded to the Twins for cash considerations, gone. And Johan Ramirez, who was, a god for throwing, a little too late, but he did it, to the back of what's his name, Reese Hoskins.
Reese.
He got DFA'd as well. He's in limbo as we stand right now, but it shows you, and we've seen it with other players as well. This Nunez guy who came up for the Mets, they sent him down after a scoreless relief outing. My point is, David Stearns, unlike Billy Epler last year, who would stick with the Jimmy Yaka bonus 10 times, and every time he'd give up a run, and before he would DFA him or option him. Stearns, quick hook, and I respect it. Not everybody's a Stearns fan. It's way early, I think, to judge David Stearns. A lot of people think, he's got that ego about him. He's the smartest man in the room. Time's going to tell. He built a winner in Milwaukee, but I can tell you, because I see with my own eyes, he doesn't stand for, if you suck, you're gone. That's basically what we've seen, and I respect it. Yes, I'm only speaking about the bullpen, obviously.
Yeah, well, that's the funny part about all of that is bullpen is it's the least likely position for you to get praised unless you pitch one specific inning, right? And
like an Edwin Diaz.
The bullpen is the position where everybody likes to shit on them and tell them how much they suck. And then they won't talk about you at all if you're doing a good job in the sixth inning.
I gave props to Reed Garrett.
I know you. I'm not saying you necessarily.
No, I know.
I'm
just playing with you.
In general. So I will say this: as somebody that has had to pitch for his job on a outing to outing basis, if you feel like you're going to be able to just get rid of guys and just run the train back and forth and sign guys, he's going to be he's going to find out. Stearns is going to find out that shit ain't going to work either. Yep. So I know that you have to win, but if there's 3 or 4 different guys sitting down in the bullpen that weren't there week in, week out, I don't believe that that's a success for a good bullpen either, unless you have starters that are going into the 7th and finishing the 7th on a nightly basis.
Bingo.
Which has not been proven yet. So
right.
I felt bad for the kid Ramirez. He took it on the chin the other day. He could have been out of that inning in Chicago without all that nonsense happening. And then he ends up giving up a big fly, which makes everything look worse because people have a tendency to then forget about the ball that went in between him and the catcher and nothing happened. And then there was another misplayed ball out there that ends up being a hit, which is, should be a team error. So, look, man, bullpen is a thankless job unless you are the closer and you're really, really good at it. So,
yeah.
I feel sorry for those guys, but it's understandable. Hey, you either do it or you're gone. But damn, this game is hard. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just say I went out there and I did good every time? This game is damn hard.
It really is. And, Stearns has to play a little bit of chess and not checkers with these moves. For the most part, I don't know if other fan bases do this. I mean, we're talking about the last 2 spots on the pitching staff of, the last guys in the bullpen. But I'm not talking about a blockbuster trade here, but we're diving into the little small, minute details, which makes this game great.
You know what? And we'll go right back to this again. If the guys were getting into the 7th coming out of spring training like they used to, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because you wouldn't have seen those guys be exposed that many times up to this point already. So them being exposed early in the season and then struggling when you are that last guy or second to last guy, sure, it's easy to say, get him out of here, bring somebody else up here. If spring training was ran a little differently than it used to be and guys came out ready to throw 100, 110 pitches coming out of camp, you don't even see those guys early on. You don't see them till later on in the season, or you don't see them until there are blowout games, but they've been forced into action due to the starting pitchers, which for the most part have been okay. But there was a time when 5 and dive was an embarrassment. now 5 is, hey, we had a great outing today. He went 5 innings and gave up 2 runs and got into the 6th. Well, come on.
I could take that a step further. I brought it up once, I think, on the podcast. A quality start is 6 innings and 3 earned runs or less. So that's a 4.50 ERA.
Right.
How in the hell is that a quality start? A 4.50 ERA is not good.
It's not great.
It's not bad.
It's not a 5.50.
Right. It's not right.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like we're calling quality now a 4.50 ERA. So I get what you're saying. Before, because you were talking about spring training, before we talk about how I tied JD Martinez to spring training and everything, let's talk about Francisco Alvarez. Go for it.
Well, what I wanted to say about him is, again, I went to opening day. He struggled. And then since then, he kind of got hot. But he got hot hitting in the 7th or 8th, 6th, 7th, or 8th in the lineup. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was down in the lineup. What I don't like what they've done to him over his year plus now, or a little over a year. I know he came, so we'll just call it a year in the big leagues. Moving him around in the lineup so goddamn much. You know, he'll hit anywhere from 8th to 4th to 2nd. I don't think that's conducive to, because baseball players are mental monsters.
Yep.
And knowing that I'm going to be hitting in this spot, and so-and-so is more than likely going to be hitting in front of me, and so-and-so is more than likely going to be hitting behind me. I don't like that they're going to try to throw him into the cleanup spot as a 22-year-old, 1 year into the league, learning how to hit at the major league level player. I don't think that's necessarily 100% fair to him, because it's going to make him feel like he has to go above and beyond what the 7 or 8 hole hitter would do. I think that if we can hide him a little bit down there, and I know we're going to get to JD now, that will even make his growth that much quicker, that much stronger, and that much more of an arc forward, as opposed to like, hey, you're hitting 4th tonight. You better hit a home run. You know, that's a lot of pressure.
Especially for a 22-year-old kid who's a catcher and he's got enough to worry about. As a catcher, your main focus is, pitching staff, speed on the bases, calling the game. 22 years old, man, that's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in. But this is the thing about the Mets, is they have that number 31 guy.
Yes, they do.
Who has kind of set a precedent for catchers being offensive monsters as well.
And that's why, even though Alvarez last year, the average did not pan out well, he was right there with home runs for 21 years or less with Johnny Bench as a rookie.
Yep.
I mean, that's company. So, perfect segue.
Actually, speaking of catchers, Johnny Bench, I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the passing of Jerry Grote.
Absolutely.
Who Johnny Bench actually said that if Jerry Grote was a Cincinnati Red, I would be playing third base. So that lets you know what people thought about Jerry Grote as a catcher. May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. A 2-time All-Star, 12 years with the Mets, won a World Series in '69. I think the most iconic shot, and you could disagree, is him and Koosman in the '73 pennant. With him, Koosman jumping into Grote's arms. A lot of people don't talk about Grote, but he was a backbone of those very, very good and a championship team back in '69. And solid, tough, passed away at 81 years old. And I Mets will definitely honor him, as they should. Buddy got the patch. I'm not sure if he'll get a patch, but Jerry Grote deserves all the recognition in the world.
He'll get his due for sure.
Rest in peace, Jerry Grote. On catchers, Francisco Alvarez should not have to worry about batting 4th or 5th, but he still has to. Why? Well, Christmas came early for the Mets when out of nowhere they shocked the world and signed JD Martinez to a 1-year, $12 million contract, mostly all deferred, and it was too good to be true. Well, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true, because JD Martinez has yet to play in a major league game, and now he's had another setback. It's been almost 3 weeks. He's played in 2 minor league games. They called it body soreness, and he had to shut it down for 3 days. And then they said that he had back tightness, and he had to have a cortisone shot that he already had earlier in the week, and 3 to 5 days before he can swing a bat and then ramp it back up again. I'm getting Jed Lowry vibes.
Oh,
I'm not saying that we'll never see him. Lowry had 2 years, so that's crazy. Lowry had a 2-year, $20 million contract. He had like 7 total at-bats. I'm not, and Martinez, if the Mets are out of it by the deadline, he's going to be traded, but he has to play. What's going on? I mean, he's hurt. It's, I guess, not really a conspiracy theory. He's 36. He's had back trouble, so he's got it again. He ramped up too quickly. 80 swings or at bats, Mendoza called it, really quick is not ideal. But we were so pumped and perfect for Pete for protection and for what your great point, Alvarez not needed to bat fourth or fifth. And now Martinez, I'd be surprised if I'm not even expecting JD Martinez right now. I will be happy when he's in the Mets lineup. That's how I look at it. What is your take on this, all this bullshit? Because it's turned into, come on.
Yeah, I think that we definitely have to put him out of mind right now at this point. I think the cortisone shot screams of disc injury. As somebody that does have a disc injury and had surgery and has had cortisone shots in his back to try to alleviate the pressure from the discs pushing on the nerves, which then shoot down your ass and down your leg and into your foot, and you can't move. So I would think that probably what happened was the excitement of, okay, I'm signed. I can't wait to get back on the field. Probably overdid it, swinging way too much for a 36-year-old. And I don't mean swinging too hard. I mean probably far too many reps.
Yes.
Trying to, hey, I'm ready. I'm going to come be the savior. I'm going to come help the team. And his 36-year-old body that did not get to go through a normal ramp up of spring training basically told him, hey, you're 36 and you got a bad back. So we're going to have to let you know by making your back ache. And I think that's the case right now. The thing about backs is the cortisone shot could take, and he's going to feel good in 4 or 5 days. And the cortisone shot could not take, and it's going to take a little bit longer. So I think that you just kind of put him out of mind right now and hope for the best that he can get healthy as soon as possible.
There's really not much more to say, because we don't know how his back will take. I could tell you this before we move on, that this happened to him last year as a LA Dodger, and he did get a cortisone shot 3 to 5 days, and it worked, and he was good to go. I don't know. He's a year older. He ramped up differently this year, so it could be completely different. But we will hope for the best. But like you and I in agreement, we're not going to expect anything out of JD Martinez for the Mets until he's penciled in that lineup.
Which I tell you what, and we talked about this through text, you and I too. If that is the case, then hopefully that gives DJ Stewart a little bit of a respite so he can take a little bit of a breath and say, okay, I'm not looking over my shoulder, and any day now I'm going to be called into the office to be told that I'm out of here. And maybe he can start putting the bat to the ball like we saw him do at the end of the year last year, and know that he's capable of doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. DJ Stewart had that big 2-run home run, and maybe that monkey's off his back, and now it's, like you said, Martinez on the back burner. He can, like you said, breathe.
Focus on playing baseball a little bit, not focus on packing my shit.
Exactly. Let's get into the elephant in the room before we get into the mailbag. The pitching pandemic of the elbow injuries. Now, it's been 2 weeks since we've had our podcast as I was on the IL, not elbow related. But as a pitcher, Bill Pulsifer, who had Tommy John surgery and had his elbow repaired, we are in 2024, and I know you have spoken about this, and you and I over text have spoken about it, but not here for the listeners watching and the listeners listening. It is a problem. Now, I'm just going to ask you, because you've literally lived the life. You had the surgery from Dr. James Andrews, who went on a record saying that it's a combination of the 3 things that you sure are going to explain in your own words: grip, velocity, and innings logged. And you can tell us what you think about the pitch clock and everything. But with Spencer Strider, with Sandy Alcantara, Jacob deGrom, we've seen Framber Valdez now go on it. Yuri Perez, even not elbows. Yeah, I mean, Senga, shoulder. It's not the elbow, but it's it's an arm injury. What did I send to you? It's like more this in the last 2 years than X amount of years combined. Yeah. So people are equating that to the pitch clock.
I think it was 58 something starting pitchers
it's
with arm injuries. 58
and top pitchers and Spencer Strider is going for his second. Walker Buehler is coming back from his second. I saw another pitcher who's not on the level going for his third. Like, what is going on, Bill? You can speak, and you have the floor. You've lived it, you see it, you've talked about it. But now, for here on your podcast, share what your opinion is on all this stuff with the elbows and the injuries.
I think it's so many different things that you can't pin it on one thing. But I think it's like a perfect storm of multiple things that's going on. And I think that we'll start with the most obvious thing, which that's the rise in velocity in pitches, and the fact that everyone is chasing that velocity because it's been proven the faster it comes, the harder it is to hit. So with the advent of pitch, the velocity being everywhere in the stadium, as well as if you're not looking at it after every pitch, you're going into the dugout in between innings and you're looking at your numbers. We'll bleed that into our spin rates. Now that they can quantify the spin rates and the amount that the ball is spinning, that's making the guys try to spin the ball more than they ever did because they have a number that they can see that say it's this specific number. I'm going to try to reach for a bigger number. Now you add in the fact that a couple of years ago when everybody started taking the substances more serious, to use them to know that because they knew now the numbers. We didn't know this back when we were putting firm grip on our hands and our arms to try to just make ourselves stop sweating. And I always thought the rule was you can't put anything on the ball. So if I'm putting something on like these guys aren't even allowed to put rosin on their arms or rosin on their pants. So I think that now you add in that. We've taken away anything for these guys to use other than the league-approved rosin bag, which is just it's powder. It's not rock rosin, if you beat up fresh rock rosin, it has more tack to it and more stick to it than your regular bag of bought powder that they bring out there. You'll see two of them when you watch the game tonight or whenever it may be. You'll see two of them sitting out there. One's for one team, one's for the other. These are league-mandated rosin bags. So you add in the fact that now the guys aren't allowed to use anything to get the ball, to grip the ball. I go to fantasy camp every year. There's Major League Baseballs down there. When I pick up those Major League Baseballs, two things. One, they feel like they are bigger than the baseballs that I threw when I was in the major leagues. Two, the seams are wide and flat. That didn't used to be the case. They used to be brought very, very close together, and there was a distinct lip on the seam of the ball, which what does that help you do? It helps you spin the ball. So I'm able to not have to grip the shit out of it without having anything on my hand and be able to spin the ball. So now they're asking these guys with balls that are not rubbed up like they used to be. When you watch the games, watch how white the baseballs are relative to what the baseballs looked like in the 90s and the years prior to that. The balls always used to have a brown hue to them because they were rubbed with the mud from the river, the one place. It doesn't look like they're doing that anymore.
Not at all.
So I think that you add velocity, chasing spin rate. The guys don't have anything to hold on to the ball. The balls are bigger. The balls have flat seams. And now there's going to be your perfect storm for arm injuries. Now we've introduced, and this isn't so much for the relievers. This is much more for the starting pitchers. And if you look at the guys that are going down right now, it's a majority starting pitchers. The shot clock. The shot clock definitely has something to do with pitch-to-pitch recuperation when you're a guy that's asked to go out there and throw 100, let's just use the number 100 pitches every 5 days. And you are not allowed to throw over more than this amount of times, and they're not allowed to walk up to the mound and talk to you. Because a lot of times mound visits aren't necessarily to talk strategy or to talk about the whatever. It's
to give them a break.
Hey, I'm just giving you a breather right now. Let's waste a little bit of time so you can regroup. And I said this to you about the power meter. Yep. Pitchers walk into a game with a power meter, just like a fighting game. Hopefully your meter is at 100. With every single pitch you throw, that meter starts to dwindle. But then if I throw the pitch, it comes up just a little bit more. But then as the time goes down, my meter is now smaller and I'm out. I'm out of gas. But in a fighting game, I get into a fight. I get hit a couple times. I back out. My meter comes back up. Okay, now I'm ready to engage again. It's the same thing with these pitchers. They have this meter that isn't up to 100% to start with. Now it's depleting as I throw each pitch at max level because it's the only way you can pitch nowadays. Your meter is not regaining enough before you throw that next max level pitch, because there is no, I need an extra 5 seconds here. I'm going to step off. I'm going to step off again. I'm going to throw over 3 times. People used to complain about the throw overs. A lot of times that was for me to just catch a little bit of a break here real quick before I make my next pitch. So I think that it's all of those things together, and the people that are saying the shot clock has nothing to do with it, I believe, are ignorant to say that there's no evidence that it is, because there is no evidence right now that it isn't. So to me, it's just the same. And as somebody that did pitch and somebody that did know, okay, I'm in the 7th inning and I'm 105 pitches in, I might need a little bit more time in between this pitch and the next one. So I definitely believe it has something to do with what's going on. And something has to be done, because there is one Hall of Famer right now that had Tommy John surgery. One and one only. And that's John Smoltz. There are going to be possible Hall of Fame players that are sitting right now getting ready for their arm to be operated on that we're going to miss out on as baseball fans.
Jacob
DeGrom, possibly Spencer Strider. You know, he was
Sandy Alcantara.
These are generational talent. And it's being taken for granted that you can just blow up guys and say it doesn't matter, or it's on to them to ease back some. Don't throw so hard. Come on, man. You can't do that, because, and the people that say that are usually, well, so-and-so, let's use Seaver. Seaver used to be able to do this, that, and the other thing. Well, Seaver faced, and nothing against anybody that ever played, but 6, 7, 8, 9 in the lineup. He could throw a mistake over the middle of the plate at 90% of his velocity and get a pop-up to center field or a fly ball to center field, because they couldn't leave the yard. Nowadays, 1 through 9, there is no pitcher anymore. 1 through 9, every single guy can hit the ball over your fence if you're not coming with your best shit and you're not trying to put it in a good spot. Yep. So it's like apples to oranges when you're comparing innings pitched from eras gone by, because the game has completely changed. And we're not just going to change back to, hey, everybody be a pitcher, because none of these guys learned how to be a pitcher coming up. You learned how to be a thrower and have scouts say, this guy throws it harder than everybody else and he makes it spin more than everybody else.
And also, Tyler Glasnow, we didn't even mention, he just came back from Tommy John surgery. He missed 2 years of his,
and what did he
prime.
Say? He said the lack of tack.
He said the lack of tack, and then he went after, and we can't get into this now, he went after Trevor Bauer, who, I don't know if you saw the interview with Glasnow, but Bauer, what he did was show on a YouTube video how he could cheat by using tack and get away with it, and then Glasnow in return said, "Screw you, Bauer! Look what you've done." And
how about that? And now all these guys are going down.
Right. So I think tell me if I'm wrong, because you explained it very, very intently and to the best of anyone's knowledge. It's a combination of everything that you just said. You throw all of what you said into a big pot and you stew it around, and you have your elbow injuries.
It's a broken arm stew, or broken arm salad. It's just
and no one wants a part of it. It's ruining the game.
And nobody can say it's just this or it's just that. And I got into it a little bit in Twitter because I said something and I mentioned all those things and I mentioned the shot clock. And I know it's a hot topic right now for people to say whether it's the shot clock or whether it's not the shot clock. It is definitely a thing. And as a former especially for starting pitchers, and I'm going to tell you why it's not for relief pitchers, because they don't have to go out and throw 100 pitches. They don't have to throw pitch 80 to 100 when their power meter is completely freaking deleted. And I'm under the gun because I can't give this guy a ball, because if I fall behind in the count, now the leverage is on his side. So there's definitely something to it. I think that it was wrong by MLB to jump right out and say, no, there's nothing to do with that, after the Players Association, the guys that play the game and report to them, are saying that there's something about it.
Bill, you're a former Major League Baseball player. You're in that less than 1%. It's crazy how not many more people have said what you just said about you don't see these injuries happening to relievers. And it's exactly why.
Loizaga throws 100 miles an hour and he's got a ridiculous breaking ball.
Right.
It's starting pitchers, man. It's insane.
But for every Loizaga, Jonathan Loizaga on the Yankees, we're talking about everybody. For every Loizaga, there's 10 starting pitchers.
Right,
so,
exactly. There's
something
up. There's something up.
That's literally the reason. I mean, a huge reason, not the reason, because we talked about there's many. But it's because it's the starters, and it's because they're going 80, 100, and their power meter, like you said,
The
and
power meter
everyone,
is depleted. It's depleted.
right.
And they still have to go out to try to throw it at the 100% power meter level at a 35% strength level. It's
Right.
just a matter of time that it's going to pop. Anytime you get over 85 miles an hour, if you look at the statistics and the science of it, the UCL is supposed to pop. The fact that it doesn't on a Major League Baseball player lets you know how special those Major League Baseball players' arms are, that it doesn't break. One last thing on this, and I'd like to, the amount of guys that are under 26 years old that are having this. I had it at 22. Dr. Andrews did his studies, and he is the preeminent UCL guy for the last 35 plus years, other than Dr. Job, who invented the surgery. He said that velocity needs to be a progression and not a race, and that the UCL ligament does not mature completely until the age of 26 years old.
I was mesmerized by
blown
reading
away
that.
by that. And
Yeah.
it makes so much freaking sense as to what's going on, because velocity is taught from the very, very young ages. And I see it all over in amateur baseball, because obviously what's the hot topic? Throw it as hard as you possibly can, because it makes sense. It's harder to hit. But to what detriment to your long-term health? And it's not being taught as a progression. I believe that pitching needs to be taught first. Velocity needs to be taught second. I think it's going the other way around now. They'd like to have the guy that can throw the shit out of the ball and say, I'll teach him how to pitch. But I just don't see that's what's actually happening. I think that it's try to throw it harder and then just try to make it move more.
Yeah.
That's
and
not pitching. That is not pitching. That is still throwing.
To your point, Hall of Famer Pedro Martinez called it exactly what you were just talking about it. Too many reps before you're 26, let's say, and he called it your baby, and I'm quoting here, baby ligaments are just not ready for it.
100%,
You know?
100%.
So you and Pedro right there are in total agreement.
And I'm sure people probably think that Pedro's not a cerebral baseball mind.
Huge.
No way, man. This guy is brilliant. He is brilliant with what he's talking about. I mean, I'm sure people just think that he was just this phenomenally talented super athlete. No, this guy is a brilliant, brilliant baseball mind and a very intelligent individual.
We could talk about this for days. I'm sure next week when we're back for episode 32, unfortunately, there might be another couple of pictures.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not.
It hits my heart, man. It really does.
I know.
It pulls my heart.
You lived it. It changed the course of your life.
Changed a lot.
And now it's doing it to a lot of pitchers all at the same time.
It's sad. It's sad.
We do have to move on to the mailbag. And for the sake of time, since we're backed up, I was going to read questions from last week that we did not. But for the sake of time, because I do want to get into our quick pitches, we're going to just take a couple of some of the questions here.
Okay.
And again, if you're new to the show, the Shay Hello podcast, every week we ask listeners, watchers, please subscribe again, like, share, and subscribe. Shay Hello Media on YouTube. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, Shay Hello Podcast. We ask if you have a question, Mets, MLB related, type it in. It comes from on X or Twitter, Shay_Hello. We throw it out there a couple days before we record. We're doing it now. It's for Bill or myself. Usually Bill gets the questions. Without further ado, Bill, it's been a couple of weeks. You ready?
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we're not going to do all the questions, so I do sincerely apologize for everyone who threw in a question. But for the sake of time, let's pick a couple. We'll go with Jeff Cohen, who has a podcast, Baseball and Barbecue. Check it out. I'm a listener, subscriber, great show. He writes, Bill, with the game changing so much, which part of the game do you miss? Hit and run, sacrificing, double switches, something else?
I mean, I read this question, and I think Jeff probably knows my answer. All of the above, man. You know,
I thought you were
I grew up
that.
a National League fan, you know, and loved National League Baseball. I love that it's a thinking man's game as well as a physical game, or physical exertion. Sure, all of those, man. I loved bunting. You know, I loved the art of the hit and run. The stolen base is obviously back, but it came back kind of in a weird way due to rules changes. But all of the above, man. I miss all of that. I miss the double switch. I miss the strategy. I miss the pinch hitter. You know, I miss all of it.
The DH and the NL, and that's why I love that. I used to love the NL more because of no DH, and you could have the pinch hitter,
All the
double
strategies.
switches,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah,
cat.
strategies.
I'll just hop on the question because it's a very good question.
Yeah.
I missed the cat and mouse game between managers where, with the double switching, and
Yeah.
he's
The
got
pinch
him
hitter
left.
bringing it in. Yes.
Right. And now with all the different rules on the DH, we don't have that anymore.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. Just
Oh,
play it out.
he's got one lefty on the bench,
Right.
Okay, so we got our one lefty left in the bullpen. No cat and mouse. It's, right there on the scorecard in the
A
dugout.
little more cut and dry.
Exactly.
Not as intellectual, not as where you can sit and kind of manage along.
I love that part.
And
Yeah.
that's what made it so great.
Yeah, very good question. He has one question for me. Nothing to do really with baseball other than at the stadium. It does. Jeff does ask, Casey, at the stadium, do you prefer bottled beer or from the tap? All the above, like you. Yes. The answer is yes.
I don't think at New Shea they're doing it other than in cans anymore. I think City Field, because all I saw was cans. I don't know if they even do tap anymore. Or bottles.
I think they do because
I'll be there on Saturday night. I'll take a look again.
Are you going for Doc's ceremony?
I'm supposed to go
Sunday?
to a dinner. I'm supposed to go to a dinner on Saturday night.
Okay.
There is a possibility that I will be there Sunday. I would like to be there Sunday. I have never made 2 trips on back-to-back days, but
Doc's ceremony might have to.
Yeah, this might be the time where you gotta be there Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. Thank you for the questions, Jeff. Let's go to Jimmy Lags. He has a question for Bill. Bill, definitely not for me. Bill, have you ever thought of being a pitching coach?
I was briefly in an independent league. Unfortunately, at the time, I was raising a young family, and just financially, it didn't work out to where I could afford to make the amount of money or lack thereof being a pitching coach. So I had to take a job in the construction industry so I could afford to raise my family and, for my wife and I to live. Unfortunately, I think that my day might have passed because of my older school views, which I think another thing.
Hey,
if we'll go
it could
back
still work.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yes, the short of it, yes. Long of it, I don't know if it's going to happen. I will say this about the injuries in that they don't know how to teach pitching anymore because the guys that are being pitching coaches are guys that probably, even at the big league level, 1, didn't make it to the big leagues. 2, the guys that are minor league coaches, a lot of them are A-ball. I'm going to use a bad word here. Flunkies. They flunked out. They didn't progress. And those are the guys that are teaching pitching. So they didn't really pitch long enough to know how to pitch. So all they can rely on is the new techniques that are being given to them by the guys that are looking at computer models and watching biophysics and biomechanics to teach you how to throw harder, spin ball, not teach you how to jerk the guy with the changeup or, pitch up and in to get a win down and away, to add Don Sutton, add and subtract on your fastballs. So I would love to coach because I think that the game's going to have to come back that way again a little bit for us to combat the injuries. And I think I would be the type of guy that would, because I learned from Al Jackson. The guy was tiny. He was a lefty that threw nothing. The guy pitched for 19 years in the big leagues because he pitched. So I think I would be a great pitching coach. I don't know if that's in the cards because of the way the game has gone.
Well, never say never.
Never. Yep.
It's not like you're 80. And even Phil Regan, the Vulture, was still part of the Mets organization at 80. So, you're a spring chicken when it comes to coaching. We got time for one more question, and then we'll go into quick pitches. We'll go to Theo A. He's got 2 questions. We'll go with the first one. For Bill. Bill, who was your favorite team to face when you were pitching? Weird question.
Favorite team to face?
Yeah.
Any one of them that had a major league uniform on.
Oh, that's
because that meant I was pitching in the major leagues. I was a journeyman. I pitched in 7 seasons, a little over 4.5 years in the major leagues over 7 seasons. So I had a very good game against the Expos. A shutout or not a shutout. I don't even know if it's a shutout. Anyway.
Yeah,
complete game against me and the crazy Perez, the guy that used to dance after he struck guys out. Me and him had a great game. I pitched against them well. Like I said, any team that had a major league uniform on, because that meant I was playing Major League Baseball.
That's a really good answer. So I want to thank everybody for chiming in. Apologize we didn't get to every question, but we're back on track here with the questions. So look out this coming week for.
Ask them again next time.
Yep. We'll throw it out there, and maybe we'll get to some of the questions if they still apply. So thanks for Bill with the great answers. Thanks for everybody who chimed in. Again, subscribe at Say Hello Media on YouTube, podcast Say Hello Podcast, and look out for when you could have Bill Pulsifer answer your questions. Bill, quickly, it is time for quick pitches. If you're new to the show, 3 questions. If I don't like the third answer, we'll go to 4. It doesn't have to do with baseball. Bill does not know what's coming, and it's been a couple of weeks, so I'm more than ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm ready for this.
All right.
Maybe.
Bill, question 1. What is your favorite smell?
You know, for the longest time, it was the Vanilla Rama and coconut trees that you hang on your mirror. The mix of the Vanilla Rama and the coconut together was one of my favorite smells.
Are you talking about like air
The little
freshener?
trees the little trees that
On your car?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I know exactly what
Vanilla
you're
Rama
talking.
mixed with the coconut. 2
Okay.
of them, 1 of each.
Yeah, I smell them right now in my head.
Smells
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Okay. I like that because I'm down with
I like
that.
pine too, like a nice pine candle, like a Christmas scented candle. I like that, and I do. This is old fashioned and weird, but I do like potpourri as well.
Hey, this is what quick pitches are for. Weird answers. So,
yep.
Potpourri, but I got.
I used to dig it, man. I used to love going in the '90s in the trinket store that sold all the little statues and had all kinds of shit. I used to love going in there and getting bags of potpourri.
I wonder if there's anybody listening right now who doesn't smell potpourri as we're talking about it. It's just one of those smells that you don't forget, So, all right. Question 2. What natural phenomenon brings you the most joy? Now we're talking sunsets, waves, something along in nature like that brings you the most joy. Sunrises.
You know what? I'm going to say this. The smell of fall in the air, like maybe a little fire going on. Maybe like the leaves. You can smell the leaves. The crispness of the air in the fall time. I don't know if it's a natural phenomenon, but just that whole thing of the fall with just everything about it. It's
not a phenomenon, but it's nature, and it's due to things that go on in the universe. So, I like that smell.
You know what? I don't mind rain. I don't like playing in the rain because I was a baseball player. But I like a little bit of rain. Rain hitting on the window or something like that. That's always relaxing.
It's funny because you could tell where someone lives by their answer if you like rain or not. Where they live in the country or in the world. We don't get enough rain. We get too much rain. Where's the rain? I hate the rain. Rain's too hard. It rains every day. So I could tell where you live by. I don't mind the rain, because that's
you don't get it all the time, but I don't mind it when it comes.
Right, Northeast,
it's relaxing.
Exactly. All right, question number 3: What do you take pictures of the most?
My dogs.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, an easy question.
My dogs.
Yeah,
or my loadout weapons from Warzone when I send them to people. I'll save a build of my weapon that I'm using and.
Yeah,
but my dogs for sure.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that because we're dog lovers, and it's.
I just sent you a photo of the dogs the other day while we were walking.
Yep. I knew you were going to say that, so we'll go to question 4.
Okay.
Because I do the same with dogs. Question 4: What is your guiltiest pleasure that you could think of,
or that I can say on podcast?
Choose your words.
You know what? My
carefully.
Guilty pleasure, to be honest with you, is I'm going to go right back to playing Warzone.
Right.
And enjoying a few beers while I'm playing Warzone.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's obviously maybe a little too often sometimes, and I'm 50 years old, so when people hear that I still play video games, they sometimes think I'm crazy, but I feel that's the same thing with like, you're 50, you listen to hip hop? Like, listen, buddy, I grew up on video games and I grew up on hip hop. What makes it good? I'm going to change away from the things that I enjoyed when I was growing up. Nothing at all.
age is just a number. I'm not like you in video games, but with hip hop and rap, I'll listen to Eminem and old school hip hop and back in the '90s and little Eminem, Linkin Park over and over and over again.
My YouTube channel, which I don't do anything on it other than comment here, the name is Wu-Tang is Forever. That's the name of my channel. I'm
right.
I'm 50 and I'm white, but I grew up on hip hop and I love hip hop.
Guilty pleasures could be way worse, so nothing wrong with that.
Right on.
That's going to put a wrap on Quick Pitches, and that is also going to put a wrap on episode 31, the Mike Piazza episode. It was our longest podcast yet, but I knew it would be. We had to unpack a lot, Bill. We're into the season. Mets are rocking and rolling. Their record is not rocking and rolling, but we had a lot to unpack. So before we say adios, which is Spanish for goodbye, anything that you would like to say to our listeners as we depart and exit episode 31?
As always, thank you to everybody that watches and listens. And don't give up on the ball club yet. You got to believe. And no matter what, we're going to be Mets fans and we're going to root for the ball club and stay positive.
Absolutely. With you 100%. If you are watching on YouTube at Say Hello Media, hit that subscribe button. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. For Stephen White, our producer behind the scenes, Bill Pulsifer, my name is Casey Lynn saying so long until next time.